Here we go.
Okay. Heary. We will begin the protection and policy meeting for April 8th, 2019. We are in room 207. It is 5:30-ish, pretty close, right on there. So let us begin. The roll call. I got this
You
time.
got it this time.
Yeah, we'll start with Alder Stoyer,
Here.
Alder Vanderleest. Here. Alder Stevens.
Here.
And myself, Alder Scannell. We are all present. The gang's all here. I'll take a motion to approve our agenda for April 8th, 2019. Motion to approve by Alder Vanderleest, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Wait, hold on a second.
Yep.
I'll take that, thank you. I'm sorry. Who approved the agenda?
Alder Vanderleest? Stevens, second.
So that's not a big issue, 6-5, 4, 6-5.
I know. Okay.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve our minutes of March 25th, 2019 Protection and Policy Meeting. Approved by Alder Vanderleest. Second, or motion by Alder Vanderleest, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, our minutes from our last meeting is approved.
Okay.
All right, on to regular business. One, consideration with possible action on an appeal by Luke Froby, thank you, sorry. Froby, regarding the denial of his operator's license. Staff.
So the police department did deny the operator's license based on his conviction record, which you have in front of you. It looks like he did submit a lot of information showing that he's rehabilitated himself and you know, working towards that. So if you want to hear from him, the committee would just have to determine whether or not the items he submitted is sufficient to overcome that record.
Right. Okay. Take a motion to open the floor.
Want motion open the floor?
Motion to open the floor by Alder Stoyer, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The floor is now open if you care to come up. Did you fill out one of the forms by any chance?
Yes, I just did.
Okay, okay.
Can you pause one second, Alder Stoyer, you're not, are you in here?
I should be. It said enter meeting.
Members?
Says agenda, I'm in, unless it's leave meeting.
Join, oh.
I already joined.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm in.
Hang on a sec, we got a technical.
Technical.
And then Alder Stoyer, you made the motion to open the floor, correct?
Yes.
Seconded by?
Stevens.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at my letter at all that I had written, but I could just read that to you if you'd like. Or-
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Well, I was writing it and hoped they would reconsider my decision regarding my bartending license for St. Brennan's Inn here in Green Bay. My record is obviously troubled, but I've matured and grown from that time in my life and have moved away from my hometown in order to get away from the negative influences. I had come from about 2.5 hours west of here, a small farm town. In relation to the arson and theft charge, which is almost 7 years ago now, I served 6 months of jail time and successfully completed 4 years of probation. I have maintained steady employment since January 2nd of 2013, and even before that was only unemployed briefly. I have some of my rights back, such as right to vote, and have paid about $8,000 in restitution since then, making continuous payments for years now. After paying full restitution, I will be eligible to have that felony reduced to a misdemeanor. And I fully acknowledge also that the public urination, the non-registration, and operation of suspension of registration are against the law, but are not technically not a criminal or misdemeanor offense. I'm not trying to dismiss it at all, or their existence, but I cannot emphasize enough that I was truly at a different place in my life then, and have matured mentally, emotionally, and definitely financially. Since that time in my life, I have had one run-in with the law, approximately, I think I put 4 years, but I think it was 3 years ago, actually. That instance was an OWI, my first and only one, where I acknowledge I was definitely 100% in the wrong that night. Went to a local bar after a verbal altercation with my girlfriend. I've never been one to do so in that situation, and I made a very poor choice. Obviously ended up driving home that night, and it brought me to one of the lowest points in my life, but I can honestly say I am trying to learn from every mistake that I have made. I'm grateful that I did not end up hurting someone else or myself that night, and I've completed my driver's safety plan and AODA sessions with Jim Kramer at the Clark County Community Services Building, or who I've actually worked with since 2013 on that first felony misdemeanor charge. I'm also currently have an ignition interlock installed in my car until October of 2019. Most recently, I moved to Green Bay to go back to school for barbering. Though I have a certificate for welding from CBTC in Eau Claire back in 2010, I'm committed to moving in a new direction and will be ready to take my state boards for barbering here in early July. I'm enrolled at the Academy of Beauty Professionals here in Green Bay after Paul Mitchell, the school of Green Bay, closed down in February. I believed a bartending job would encourage me to be more social, since I'll obviously need to be talking to people all day with my new profession. I've enjoyed my new position at St. Brennan's more than I ever thought I would, and I'm fitting in very well with my coworkers. This job is very important to me for several reasons, which is why I'm asking for reconsideration. I have enclosed 2 letters, which I believe you have a copy of, one from Jim Kramer, the AODA counselor, and one from Ashley Oates, my boss and manager at St. Brennan's Inn. I also included documents indicating successful completion of probation and jail time, updated payments and balances owed, at least within about a month ago, and proof of completion of the driver's safety plan. Thankfully, I can say that the trajectory of my life has changed tremendously since that time, and my criminal records reflect, which is why I sincerely hope you will reconsider my application. I do appreciate you guys at least hearing me out.
Any questions?
I was going to ask,
Sure.
well, thanks for coming in, Luke. Did you, as far as this restitution that you have to make, what is, you said once that is done,
Yeah,
you'll
once I'm
be
fully paid, I was told at time of, it's in court records, I believe. I don't have a copy of it. But once that's paid, I have another 9,000, maybe a little over to pay on that.
And that's from that arson?
Yeah, the arson charge,
That
theft
would,
charge.
you'd be fully
Then I'll be,
complete with that?
pardon?
You would be completed then with your obligation? that
Yes, the only thing left is to pay off. I had to be at least 25 years old, because I think I was only 20 or 21 at the time of the charge. But I'm now 27, and slowly but surely making payments, so.
So who told you that? Was that from the state? or
Judge, it
the
would have been
judge?
Judge Counsel, I believe, in Clark County,
Okay.
which I would be willing to get court record, I guess, of that if it's needed at all.
So you're looking for this position so that you can be solo behind?
Yeah,
You
so
know,
I can-
otherwise you have to have a manager
Yeah.
there? Okay. Do you have other folks here that are here on your behalf?
Actually, my
Okay,
boss.
well, when we're done, I'd like to
Alright.
hear from her too, so I'm good right now.
Now, are you employed there now?
Yes.
That's what I thought from the letter, kind of. But for how long?
Since November, beginning of November.
Okay. That's all I got. Thanks.
Yeah, for now, in case someone else comes up, but,
Thanks.
Thank you.
yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry, did you state your name and address for the record?
No.
I'm sorry.
Luke Frobe,
And your address?
1380 Shearing Road in De Pere, Wisconsin, number 39.
Yeah.
Got it.
54115.
Yep. Thank you. If you wouldn't mind, please state your name and address for the record.
Ashley Oates, 1525 Beauchamp Street.
Okay, and anything you care to add?
Sure,
I mean, your
I'm
letters-
the general manager at St. Brennan's, been working there for many years. Luke started in November. We have a very strict law or rule at St. Brennan's. None of my bartenders drink. They're very responsible. He's been one of the most responsible that I've had. Obviously, he's worked with other people and not by himself, but I would have no qualms about leaving him on his own, and I really hope that you'll reconsider his request for his bartender's license.
Were you aware of, his record
Mhm.
coming in?
Yep.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any other questions? Well,
Would you
okay.
mind filling out a sheet?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
To close the floor?
Motion, yeah, unless there's someone else.
Anyone else here for this item?
Motion to close the floor.
Motion goes to floor by Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That passes unanimously. What are you thinking, gentlemen?
I feel good about it, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve his appeal to his liquor license. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alder Vanderleest. Any further discussion? Yeah, I think it looks like you're turning things around. Looks like things are going well. You got a lot of support, which is important. So, yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Now, I should say that everything we do here at committee is just a recommendation to the council, which meets next Monday.
Monday.
At the 15th, right next door, starting at 6 o'clock, and that's when the final say will be.
Is that something I would attend as well?
You can, I mean, I don't know that this is going to be an issue. If someone, one of the other alders wants to pull it, it would be wise to be there. I don't know that they will, but I can't say that they won't, you know, so I can try to move it up so you don't have to be there all night. But it probably wouldn't hurt,
Right.
so. Okay?
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
On to item 2. Consideration with possible action on a request by Richard Craniums at 840 South Broadway to temporarily extend their outdoor premise to include their rear parking lot April 20th from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. for a benefit. Staff.
The law department has no objection.
Police would just like to make sure there would be security or adequate outside to make sure no alcohol is being brought in or taken out away.
I'll make a motion to open the floor.
Motion open the floor by Alder Steuer. Second by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the floor is now open.
Don Mildy, 840 South Broadway, Green Bay. Yes, there will be security. Make sure that we have a tubular gate that's 4.5 feet tall and impervious, so you can see everything coming in and out, and we'll have security on staff at all times.
Well, that's way too simple.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Motion,
So the police are satisfied?
Yes, we are.
motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor by Alder Alder Steuer, sorry. Seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, now that,
Motion to approve.
motion approved by Alder Steuer.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Stevens. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Okay.
Item 3, consideration of possible action on an application for a Class B beverage and Class C wine license for El Dorado LLC at 923 West Mason. Staff.
Law department has no objections.
Please concur.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Alder Steuer. Second by Alder Vanderleest. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Okay.
Item 4, consideration of possible action on a request by Sardine Can at 128 South Broadway to temporarily extend their licensed premise to their parking lot for special events June 19th, July 10th, August 7th, and August 24th. Staff.
Law department has no objections.
The police do have some concerns based on past incidents at Sardine Can with urinating out in the alley and other issues behind, and I would defer to the community police officer in that area, Eric Allen. He would have more information on it.
Officer Allen?
Some of the issues that Lieutenant was talking about, open intoxicant issues.
It's better if you come up here.
Yeah, we want to get you on camera
Where's that at?
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the corner.
Some of the issues you've had, well, there's been 95 calls there in the last year. Not all are of a high priority, but some of the issues that we're worried about is public urination. We've had quite a few times where people have been contacted for urinating on the property, open intoxicants, people walking with open containers, trash, noise complaints, parking issues, and over-serving issues. So those are the concerns we've had. I have had conversations with Ed Borowitz, who works there. He does call. Sardine Can has called when they do have problems, but they don't always call when they have problems. We do appreciate that they do call. We do not hold that against them.
Mhm.
If they call the police and there's an issue, that's what we want. We want them to work with us. So,
We had some issues with noise as well.
yes.
So I remember visiting some neighbors out there and, listening, it's usually 10 o'clock, correct? When it's supposed to stop, so
Correct.
are there issues that happen after 10 o'clock?
Yes.
How late generally? I mean, I suppose it varies.
It does vary. Yeah, I know when they do the open bands, when they shut off Howard Street. Sometimes they have gone slightly past 10 o'clock. I know they watch it pretty well. But the music does carry into the neighborhood. And we do get a fair amount of complaints from people that live around there.
These are all Wednesdays, well, one's a Saturday. I think in the past, and haven't they only had maybe one, maybe 2 events a year? This is like 4. This is more than normal.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of taverns that don't get the consideration that they do, and a lot of taverns have a lot less issues, I would say, than what they do. So I would say that they get a little more leeway for some reason. I don't know why, but,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Oh, I got a couple questions.
Okay.
To address some of your concerns for this event, they don't have any outside, like, porta potties or anything, correct?
I don't recall seeing
Oh,
any.
okay, all right.
I think there might have been.
Okay. And fencing then, some kind of fencing then to help?
There were like, I'm not sure if they call them Jersey barriers, the kind of sawhorse traffic type barriers, or 2x6 on pegs either side that kind of block the road off. I mean, it's clearly marked.
But I mean, as far as keeping patrons corralled, so to speak.
Off the property, there is nothing, no.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Officer Allen? Thank you.
Motion to open the floor.
Motion open the floor by Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody here to speak on this issue?
Yes, sir. Brian Bunkelman, 3699 Euro Lane, Napier. Gentlemen, yes, we had 3 events last year, 3 Wednesdays. Our thought this year was to ask for 3 Wednesdays again and then possibly do a Saturday bands in the street. In talking with the police in the parking last year, I didn't know of any concerns we had on any of the dates at all. We beefed up our security. We do know that I think it was November, December, we had, I would say, 2 or 3 people get cited for public urination, different things. So since then, we've added more lighting behind our building to ensure that nothing happens. We've put more security on. We've probably doubled so that they're outside the building, ensuring that nobody goes out any of the doors from that perspective. So I think I don't want to say we're fixed, but we've repaired that issue to make sure that that doesn't occur. As we go into summer, yes, our band stop at 10 o'clock from that perspective. We have plenty of security on. And again, working with the parking department, the goal is to barricade Broadway at the corner of Howard all the way to the alley, but it's through from a fire department standpoint. And we had the events in 17 and 18 with, as far as I know, out any issues from that perspective. So we're just looking to see if we can extend our premise permit to serve in our parking lot, knowing that I believe it's called the picnic law, where then they can carry that malted beverage out to the band in the street from that perspective.
Right.
Well, thanks for coming in. I just, the allegations that, Officer Allen brought forward, what do you say to that, as far as the issues that he brought forward?
I would say currently today, there aren't any issues. And now again, could go out tonight and have somebody obviously call anything. But I think from that perspective, and I know Alderman Johnson's here also, I'm right down the road in our area, we work every day to make sure. We brought on a new security manager, Ed Borowitz, late last year. We've revamped our entire security department. We've made sure that our bartenders understand we don't overserve. So I think we've tried to get better from that perspective, so that not only on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, but also for specifically for these events where we're asking the city for something special, that we really take care of that so we can do it again year after year.
One question.
Well, let's.
Go ahead, I'm
Okay.
good for now.
Yep.
I was gonna ask you, sir, how many people that will attend your event? Do you think how many would attend your event?
On a normal Wednesday farmer's market, between our patio and bars, we probably have, I would say, upwards of 150, 200 people. On these days, we probably have another 50 to 100 in the street. So I would say max of 300 people. And we're already on a normal Wednesday because of the flow through of Broadway traffic and whatnot. They're not all there at the exact same time. It's kind of in and out. You know, our band starts usually at about 6. They may stay for a half hour, hour. Band's done at 10. You know, obviously then as we tear things down, then people go inside.
Would you be willing to get one portable toilet for that number of people?
Last year, we had 3 to 4 portable toilets every day at every event, whether it was the block party or not. We specifically did. We called the city because we didn't know if there's special permits needed for that, but they said as long as they were delivered Wednesday morning, put in an area for use behind our building and picked up on Thursday, no special permit was needed. So we had 4 every single farmer's market last year from the Wednesday after Memorial Day to the Wednesday before October 1st.
That answers my question. So you already have the portable toilets?
Yes, yep, and that's already, that call's
Should
been
be a big
made.
deterrent then as far as people.
Yeah,
they
yep.
can use
So
it.
not only can they use our indoor, but we have 4 just for them outside.
Okay, thank you. That's all I gotta know.
And then these are farmer market Wednesdays?
The 3 Wednesdays are all farmers markets, and our goal was, we know obviously the school building's next to us. We wanted to make sure that kids were out of school and different things, obviously to not disturb the neighborhood. You know, many neighbors are good friends of our establishment, but that's why we tried to do it June 19th through early August, and then along with a Saturday in addition.
Okay.
Go ahead. Well, now with farmer's market, you know, the street's blocked off north of you.
Yes.
So are you saying that people stay within your establishment or in the parking lot area rather than going out in the street?
Specifically for what we're asking for these block parties, where the lot's
They're gonna
barricaded.
block off the street?
Yes, so they've been in the past, and that's what we're asking for, is that we can sell within our parking lot a malted beverage, I believe that's the picnic law piece, and they can take that malted beverage into the street area to listen to the band. But we have our security personnel at the barricade, so they're not actually leaving the street area.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Well, then that's what I was wondering, if there's gonna be any kind of need of fencing, not so much
Yep.
up at the street, but behind, like in the alley and so on, to
Yep.
keep.
What we've planned to do this year, and it's a little different than last year to make sure that we're beefing up that security, is we're looking at putting snow fencing around our entire parking lot area,
Ah.
so people know what that is. So it's kind of that orange
Yep,
flexible fencing piece. We'll do that around, so then as people are buying their beverage, to ensure only malted beverages leave our property, we'll have security people personnel there along with the barricades.
Okay, good, that's what I was going to suggest, and sounds like you've already got that.
Yep, that's
Okay.
part of our plan for this year.
Yep, super. All right, any other questions for anyone?
Will your security be trained to know that they cannot take the malted beverage and walk down to the farmer's market?
Or Steve?
Yes, and that's what we did last year, and we'd be happy to have anybody from your law enforcement come in and even talk to our group before we do that first one in June. But we've already, the past 2 years, we said they can't leave the barricaded area with anything at all. No, we don't let anybody take anything in or out of that area.
What they do, sir?
What was that? My apologies, I didn't know that, but again, we will make sure that that doesn't occur this year.
I guess with that being said, you know, the police have a little bit of a concern about this, and I'm just wondering if, in the past, during these events, if the police have been in that area, you know, during these events at all, or nearby, witness some of this.
As far as I know, there were no police calls on any of the 3 dates that we had last year, and specifically, I dealt more with the parking department from that perspective to ensure that we picked up, we cleaned up. I know that the parking department came by the next morning, or the city works area, to ensure everything, all garbage is gone, everything was picked up. We actually bring in a pressure washer person to wash up and down the Broadway sidewalks and everything else to make sure we have a good neighborhood area. But as far as I know, we haven't had any specific instances.
Okay. Not right now.
Thank you.
Nobody else want to make a motion to close the floor? Unless,
Second.
oh, we got somebody else.
We got somebody else who wants to speak. Okay. Sorry.
Will Liebergen, 7333 Casey Lane, Sabisky, Wisconsin, flat 4171. I just have some concerns about this outdoor event that, I mean, I've seen them going on, and the fencing and the flow of traffic of people is a little bit different than being described. It sounds great if they're going to have, you know, a way to stop mixed drinks going on in the street, but I think there really needs to be some barricade that stops people from leaving that event. Because right now, as it's described, or as it's set up, anybody can come to the event and out of the event through those, they're basically just 2x6 barricades. And there's no way to stop transfer to minors, there's no way to stop the alcohol, like zero barrier. So right now, it's porous barrier, so people come in, get a drink from their bar, go out into that event, and then matriculate out into another adjacent event, which is the farmer's market, and into other adjacent bars with mixed drinks all the way back from that bar. And this has happened routinely for years, especially on those days, big days, because it's a big event down there. A lot of people go out, attract a lot, they get some big bands in, so it attracts more people than usual, but there's definitely, the barrier is very loose. And I think something greater needs to be done in order to stop people from leaving the thing. Now, it is in the street, so I don't know how barricaded that fence can be, but as described, it's a very porous barrier, and people come and go constantly.
Well, Will, the police did mention that, that's an issue as far as, they asked him if they would be taking these drinks outside of their area, that they're not allowed to do that. And according to him, it sounded like yes, and you're saying that it's not necessarily like that.
I mean, if it's any indicator, it's going to be, if the on-street barricade is a 2x6, who is it and what is it stopping? And, down at other establishments in the event area, we're seeing drinks from that place. So, and that's not just on their big event days, that's on the other event days. So alcohol is ending up in our establishments, and people are saying, why can't we take mixers to go out of our
So
establishments?
somebody else is coming into your establishment with drinks.
And this is in the event, which this event already, we want to keep the alcohol in the event. That's what sets the Wednesday Farmers Market apart. And there's an ordinance within that allows licensed establishments within that farmers market to let alcohol go. I don't want to lose that, and nor do the other establishments want to lose that. And the alcohol that seems to be coming into our Wednesday farmers market is an issue for these other establishments. And so we don't want to lose that because of an establishment that's outside the area. And I don't know if you're familiar with the law with the license that go out into an event. Okay, so I just have concerns because what's being described is a little bit different than what happens on a day-to-day basis. And they might be patrolling the front door, but I know alcohol pours out the back door.
So, is this something, because you're working your establishment, do you see this yourself?
Yeah, I've taken a personal trip down there because I'm wondering why people are coming in with red Solo cups with mixed drinks in it. And I know none of the bars on the street in the licensed, or in the farmers market area, are selling stuff to go in red Solo cups. And the customers are actually telling me where they're getting it from. They're saying, well, they're letting us do that. So.
Okay.
But I would definitely some concerns on that fence. There needs to be a zero barrier fence. You can have security, but how you going to have security at every stanchion, every 8 feet, in order to stop the alcohol from going? I think it needs to be a solid fence. And if that's the case, then I don't have any issues with the event. But I think when you're having an event, one of the big things is not having a zero barrier where alcohol can't be transferred to minors. Minors can come and go without being even checked. So that'd be my concern.
Well, can maybe fill out a form?
Oh, sure.
Thanks.
Any other questions, or?
Should hear from the owner of
Yep. And anything left for Will?
Not for this gentleman.
Not from Jim, okay.
Could I ask, I'd like to ask Alder Johnson?
Yep, well,
Possible.
why don't we?
We'll wait till everybody.
Yeah. He can speak after the floor is closed.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Can we get them, gentlemen, up?
Yep. You said you've taken some measures now to beef up security and so on.
Yes,
Could you go into that a little more?
for the proposed 4 events, as we said, our goal this year is we're going to have much more fencing and security around it than we've had in past years. To my knowledge, we haven't had any issues in the past from that perspective of security. We will ensure going forward, and if that's in partnership with the police, to double check what we're doing on that Wednesday. I have no problems with that, as much oversight is needed from that perspective, but we don't even serve red Solo cups, so I guess I won't try to go through all the, what was just discussed, but, knock on wood, I think we got a very glowing report from the 3 we had last year. We will look to improve on many, many things that we discussed today, specifically the fencing, specifically how the barricades work. For the street itself, we were told that we can't have permanent fencing because if a fire truck has to come through there, it has to be barricade only. So, we'll have to work through that as to how we position our security personnel, because they want to make sure they could keep one lane of traffic fully open if they do have to go through, so we couldn't actually barricade
Right,
outside of the Sawhorse.
right.
So how many security people do you have outside watching the crowd?
We have currently employed 15. They don't obviously work every single day. Ed has been working to add another 5 to 10. So on that night, we'll probably have at least 15 people working, whether they're inside, on the crowd and whatnot. And if the police department feels we need more, we'll add more. That's we're in the process of hiring right now to make sure that they're well-trained as to what to look for and how to be part of that security team, specifically for those 4 events that are coming up.
Okay, that's all for now.
What about if you use it, they have that kind of orange fencing that,
Yep.
are you gonna use quite a bit of that then to?
Yeah, our goal is to not only put that around, I guess I would call it the curtilage of what the sidewalk is between our parking lot, specifically to rope that off and fencing, and the fence comes up to here to make sure that nobody comes in or out. But then also in some sort of fashion, even though we have to deal with the barricades on the street, put as much of it around so that our event is curtailed in that event, and that, again, if you're trying to get out with something, you're hopping the fence, well, we can stop you with that perspective and take that alcohol away or whatever that, but also coming in, as we're checking IDs and those sort of things. But we'll have that well marked off.
So in other words, the rear of your establishment will have that orange
Whole
fencing?
thing, yeah. Now, obviously, the front is already taken care of from the building itself, but the entire back piece on the alley will have all orange fencing.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Anything else?
Okay. Motion to close the floor.
Well,
Well, but,
but you can speak without the floor being open, so.
yeah,
Motion to close the floor then?
Yes.
Motion to close the floor by Alder Sawyer, seconded by Alder Stevens, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Floor is now closed. Officer Howard?
Just to reiterate on a couple things, like Will has said, the reason probably the gentleman doesn't have people cited for that is we have tried to take an offhand approach to people during the farmer's market, because I think there's an illusion that they can walk freely. So our goal isn't to necessarily ticket everybody, but to get compliance. So I have stopped numerous people as myself during the farmer's market where people are coming from the sardine can with open containers, and I tell them, dump it out, can't take it from here to there. I have gone to the sardine can to talk to staff about manning the door. At times they seem to be understaffed and they're not have that ability to stop people from coming and going with alcohol. As far as the outdoor events, like Will said, it's very hard to control that. If you're familiar with that area at nighttime, it's very dark. There's a lighting issue. Broadway and Howard is a very dark intersection, even though there's a street light there. And again, people do come and go with alcohol, and I have talked to the security staff that they have hired to tell them they cannot allow people to come and go, but it still continues to happen.
do you have a list of all these calls over time?
I have a list of the calls for the last year. I
How
can get that
many
to
were
you.
there, roughly?
95.
You said how many?
95.
I can give you that list if you want it. Not everyone was an enforceable action call.
Right.
But I was gonna ask, of those 95, how many were on these 3 special events?
I do not know.
Okay.
There were 5 calls in March. Majority were disturbances. When you read the notes of the calls, most of the people are intoxicated. So led to a potential over-serving issue, in my opinion.
As far as moving forward, if we go forward with this, they are making some changes. Can we, would you have the officers to also be there to keep tabs on this and work with them to see?
Yes. We were there in the nights they had the outdoor events. We had police assigned to go down there, just because there's so many people that go down there. But it's Green Bay, we handle 75, 80,000 calls a day. We can't sit there all night.
Right.
So we're not their private security. That's their responsibility. But we do go down there, and I have spent a lot of time down there last year myself. And we sit there as long as we can, but we get called away.
Yep.
So we can't be there the whole time.
Yeah. What do you think of the changes they're making now with the fence, the orange fencing going in the back? Do you think that makes much of a Or is it mostly coming from the front that's a big issue?
Yeah, well, we all know what orange plastic fence can stop, pretty much not much anything. It's a visual barrier, that's about what it is, you know, hopefully people respect that. That's what we hope for, but,
It stops me.
right? And it should, you know. But there's no way a fire truck could go through that block of Howard anyway. There's so many people on the stage that's built right in the middle of the road.
Yeah,
So that block is shut off.
right.
Because
But
like-
I think legally, they still can't put up a barrier because of the
Right. But
ordinance.
it would be foolish for any emergency vehicle to
To
think
try
they
and
could
do
go
that.
down there and try to clear a path. You just go around the block.
Is there any way to, what's the word I want? Do an exception for those events that block that off, so that from a block off the street from a emergency vehicle?
I think
You
those
got-
are fire department regulations. We'd probably have to ask Chief Litton. He's the emergency manager. I think he would have to grant some sort of special exception if that were the case, if he's even allowed to do that. I don't know.
Right, I don't know
It
either.
it would seem inconsistent to me, Alder Scannell, that we're intentionally taking steps with other public events to put up permanent barriers to create safety mechanisms while saying that we can't put them here.
Mhm.
So I just want to at least put that out there for consideration.
Yeah. But with those other barriers, is there still a way for emergency personnel to get through at all, or?
Presumably, but my point is that clearly there's something more permanent that we can do there that still provides access. So if that's the holdup and the concern, I think
Mhm.
let's have that conversation, but
Yeah, I think they're willing to do whatever. Yeah, okay.
My-
Yep.
My concern is still what you brought up, officer, about having police hanging around that area. You got other areas to look at, and I would hate to have that be, you know, the issue where you would be hanging around that area more so than you normally would. So that is a concern that I have. But that's all I have for now.
Well, I don't know, when there's special events and so on, I don't think that's unusual for the police to be checking those places out, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's not,
Well,
as long as they're not stuck there with issues.
Depending on the event, we would have more or less. Some events we don't, maybe an officer will drive by to shake a hand or two, but
Yeah.
that's all I have.
Thanks. Okay, anything else, Alder Johnson?
did you have questions?
Well, I just wanted, hearing from the Alder, this is your district, and I'm just wondering how you feel about it, and putting some on you.
Well, I mean, there's certain, I think, things here that can be talked about. I think the concern about going past 10 o'clock, I think that's an easy conversation, and understanding that that's where that hard shut-off needs to be. I think the porta potties is easily rectified. I think there's general benchmarks that you use, for every, I don't know the number, but
17
for
and a
every
half.
100 people, you have a porta potty. I'm making that up, obviously, but I think you just have those very basic conversations and make sure that you're properly set up in that manner. I think the fencing, maybe I would just add a contingent on, working with the PD on an appropriate fencing mechanism for that area. I see, again, like I said, if we're starting to make requirements to do these with other public events, so to say that we can't do it here would be counterintuitive to what we're trying to do with other events. So I would just suggest that we come up with a solution on that front, working between PD and the property owner for that, which I think is attainable. I know Officer Allen brought up some of the other concerns with that area, which I would corroborate. I've also received some phone calls on that front, but I would also add that I have made calls to Mr. Bunkelman here, and he's been very receptive, and he alluded to the power washer, for example. That was an outcome of one of our conversations was, hey, it's kind of messy sometimes afterwards. So he responded and
Thought we
hired
talked about
a
the
power
crowd.
washer and agreed to clean things up. So I think it's just another understanding of making sure that maybe we have an appropriate cleanup crew afterwards. And to Officer Allen's point, and I think Mr. Liebergen's point too, that I think there has been definitely some carryover from the farmer's market down that way and vice versa. with drinks in an area, that one block area that's not designated as a response. I know on Broadway had made up some signage to post there. I think it's pretty evident, though, that is not a stopgap. So there are probably some things that we will take action on that front. So if Mr. Munkelman can commit to, having that concern addressed in the opposite direction, and a security plan that addresses that, I think we just have to hold them to that then, right? To say that this is a concern. I think it's unfair to look backwards, right? And say we're gonna hold you accountable for something that you didn't necessarily know was a concern. But if we're saying here today that this is a concern, and you need to correct it, then hold them to that moving forward. So those would be, I guess, the high-level points that I kind of gleaned from here.
And Alder Johnson, as far as the fact that you got Walnut right there, you got a four-way light right there, it's a very busy intersection, you got people walking. I guess that would be a concern too, leaving that area, particular area, and going to the north.
How so?
Well, I'm just saying, I think I'm getting some mixed signals here. I'm getting things from the bars saying, we contain everybody. Then I hear also from the police that they're walking, with cups. And another owner in the district also said that as well. So, it's kind of like, I'm right, who's right? And I'm having some concern with that.
Well, that's my point, is to hold someone for past actions for something they're not aware of is one thing.
Well,
but if you're gonna say today that this is the situation, we need a security plan to address it, if it's a problem in the future, then you risk losing your permits. I feel like that's a fair response to that situation. I mean, the goal here is for them to allow an event, but ensure that they do it in compliance. And so if there are things that we're questioning that are not in compliance, I think you'd be clear about that and make sure that they come up with a strategy to address those things.
Go ahead. We've got Walnut Street there, which is obviously a barrier, but is there some way of actually connecting the two events? Would that be propitious to both parties involved here on Broadway and the Sardine Can? Would that be more problematical, or would that help solve problems?
Yeah, no, I get you're asking.
More problematic.
I think it's a good question, and I think I would have to maybe before I would go down that road of, having an answer, I want
an answer right now.
Yeah, I'd have to talk to the PD to understand, I guess, what the rules and requirements are on that, and if that is something that is manageable.
Well, I'm thinking from shake from the staff here that it was a good question, and we got the answer. It's going to be a little problematical.
We would consider extending through the Dousman intersection, through the Walnut intersection. That would be problematic. You would be cutting off one of the primary east-west thoroughfares.
Well, I don't think we'd have to. I don't think as far as connecting them.
If you would want to make the event contiguous,
Yes.
you would have to make it through the intersection, not gap the intersection, because now you'd have patrons from one part of the event going to the other part, going through a live traffic intersection, which I think would be more problematic than closing it.
So I think what we're not looking, though, at doing is changing anything.
Correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right, yeah, I wasn't thinking
I don't want to extend the
that off.
event. I think what you're saying is, how can we legalize what perhaps is already kind of happening by adding a security measure? And again, I have no interest in extending the event premise. I just want to be clear about that, but it would be, so.
Right. If there already is some egress between the two events, if there's some way we could facilitate that safely and covertly, if that's a possibility. Otherwise, we need to be working hard to stop that egress both ways.
I don't know how you can do that.
Can't do it covertly.
That's going to be difficult.
You can't combine
And
the two.
Brian, I appreciate your take on this. I do. And a lot of times with situations in an Alder district, I will listen to the Alder and really, and see what is important. I will say this, that some years ago, when I was on this committee, I went and talked to a number of the neighbors, and they were having issues with noise. Now, that's a whole nother issue. But, if there's 95 different incidents there, I'm not sure how many of those were on those particular days, You know, there were 3 events last year, and I didn't glean through that. But there's 95, and some of them, you know, are whatever, they're not specific to the event, but, you know, that was just noise. And I just remember standing on Maple and listening to the noise and how loud it was. I mean, it was really, and then you'd go 5 feet away from that house, and then you didn't hear it. Now, that's just, and I know it's not totally related to this, but somewhat it is. So you got the noise, you got the traffic flow, you got the fact you got traffic lights at a very major intersection, you can't close that area off.
I don't think you need to. I mean,
No,
it's
but
not a
I'm just saying-
prerequisite for this to
Right.
occur.
But I'm just saying too, that another owner had talked about the issue of people walking, you know. And let's face it, we're trying to be a festival city where, you know, I understand that. You know, we have these things and we want people to get out and do some things, which is important. But like I said, there's that fine line between having a good time and then also looking at something like this and going, well, you know what, we have 95 complaints, so.
Well, and I think that's for the committee to consider,
Right.
obviously.
So,
But I look back again, if the concerns that have been raised up to this point, I feel like if they can appropriately respond in a security plan with a way to deliver on those concerns, you know,
Yeah, well-
I would just encourage you to have that
And I-
dialogue with them.
and I have deferred to you on that. That's why I wanted you to come
Yeah.
up here.
My experience working with them in the past is that when I brought concerns to them, they've been very responsive and have actually done something about those concerns, at least when I brought them to them. So I would anticipate the same type of reaction if the committee put prerequisites on this.
Makes sense. Sullivan?
Thank you, Sullivan Jeffries, Chief of Staff. The 3 events that I have from the special events calendar last year for the Starting Camp Block Party were June 13th, July 11th, and August 15th. June 13th, July 11th, and August 15th in 2018.
In August what?
15th.
15?
So, and I don't know what the incidents were on that report. I guess I'm just sharing information with you, Alder Steuer,
Right.
about the specifics you've come to me. I know one thing that Officer Ellen had brought up was over-serving. I guess I don't really have knowledge in that area. I'm going to defer to PD on things like that. If you have other issues on there, PD might be more, better poised to respond to
Well-
those, but
On June 13th, there was 1, crime prevention. July 11th, there was 4. One of them was a noise complaint. On August 15th, I don't see any, so.
To get an accurate number, if an officer called out with a problem and they said they were at Broadway and Howard, the call would be labeled Broadway and Howard. It would not be 128 South Broadway. So
It's
the
just,
reality is there could be more, and it could be related. Those are just calls that are generated specifically to the address.
To the
If it would be in
address.
the alley, it would be labeled a different address potentially.
okay. Well, I think what they're talking about now is the fact that, you know, Alder Johnson said if there are some certain prerequisites or things that we can look at, that they would be held to, that we possibly approve this, but with a number of caveats on top of that, so. You know, we could repeat those again, but would it be fencing would be one? Barriers,
yeah,
barriers.
I think Mr. Liebergen's point, people handing over, so can you create like a fencing with a barrier so that you've got some depth there so they can't reach over? I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at PD, they're probably more experienced in this area for barriers that are more appropriate in those scenarios, but it seems to me that there
Wire.
could be some solutions perhaps that can help resolve some of the
So
concerns that have been brought up.
fencing and what else? What else would you?
Perhaps more security, which sounds like they've already started some, but more security to help keep people corralled.
And maybe,
Yeah.
maybe a list of these specific concerns so that they can train their security appropriately on how to watchdog those items.
Well, and I think if On Broadway reaches out and the police reach out, and I think we can move forward. I think they've already taken some steps. I think if what we've raised here, I mean, you said you wanted to work on both sides of that egress, not keeping people from On Broadway going that way too. So perhaps getting coordinated with that somehow. And I think there's enough people here to work on this where we can take a step forward and see where we end up.
I will say that, if I approve, go along with this, that, there will be watched, not only by police, but I think there'll be other folks that'll watch. I'll probably be down there as well. I'm not trying to be like, look at me, but, I think it is a concern. I do believe that area is a concern. I've been by that area a number of times, and I do have my concerns about that. But if they do some of the things that they say they're gonna do, and they follow through on that, then I think it'll bode well for them next year. But if
Well,
they don't,
that's where I would
that's gonna
encourage
be a
you as a
problem.
committee to identify, clearly communicate what those concerns are so that they can appropriately, I guess, respond or plan accordingly, to prevent those things from happening.
Well, I would make a motion to approve, according to Alder Johnson's concerns as well, but looking
Did we
at the
close the floor?
fencing.
Did we close the
Well,
floor?
did we?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
we closed the
did.
floor,
We
okay,
did.
but there's still some
Oh.
more
Okay.
commentary here.
All right.
Alder LaFave?
I think what you should do also is have a caveat in there that, he has 4 dates. If there's a problem with any one of them, the others are canceled. I think you could put that in, can't you?
It's all or nothing, isn't it?
Well, we would have to probably revoke that. We'd have to have a hearing, on it. We couldn't just say if there's an issue, we'd have to actually come before you guys and tell
Right.
you what those issues were and then make a decision. They
They'd
don't
have to
a
be able to
chance
make their
respond.
case, and we'd have to make, I think it's probably just easier to address it all. If there's something comes up in one issue, I think that's when we speak to them, this is a concern, let's problem solve, let's take care of it, see what happens the next one, we got the whole year to check it, to get
It's
this worked
possible
out.
you could approve, 1 or 2 events at this time and then have them come back for the other ones, but we don't know the summer schedule yet, so I don't know if that's gonna be possible with the time frame that they're working with.
We've okayed these in the past where we had 3 events, but now they're looking for 4.
4, yeah.
So it's just, we've had some issues in the past, now we're asking for 1 more event. So that's, that adds a little to it. So, can we make a motion? or-
I make a motion to approve it. I think that with the 4 events, I think after the first event or the second event, we should know if there's a big problem here, and we can address it at that time. If it seems like there's, things are way out of sync, that we can address it and correct it, right at that time. I'd be willing to approve it with the 4 events, and then, we can do a little follow-up after. We can talk to the police department after they have 1 event or 2 events and see how it's going. And I think that would be fair. And if there is a concern, then we can address it at that time.
Okay, we got a motion, is there a second, or?
Well,
uh,
second for discussion.
Second for discussion, okay.
I guess what I'd like to say is that, with that being said, Alder Vanderlee said, let's approve this, but I would like to have the owners, as such, meet with police and make sure that what they have in order for fencing, bathroom facilities, what else? Was one other item? Security. That those would all be amenable or workable, not only between the establishment, but with the police as well. So I would like to add that to that motion.
Okay, so that the owners will work with the police department and come to a mutual agreement on what is best concerning those 3 areas.
And if possible, in a future meeting, if that needs to be discussed back at this committee, then I would like to at least get the input from the police department if that's working.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Well, second. Well,
All right.
we're amending.
Yep, I'm amending.
Amending the motion. The
Yes.
motion is amended to include those 3 items to be addressed. Okay, so we have, do you need to hear the motion again, or?
If you could just clarify the 3 things that you want.
Security,
Fencing?
fencing, and porta potties.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item number 5, discussion with possible action, are we ready for 5?
Yep.
Discussion with possible action on request by Alder Burnett, which reads, for the city to develop a resolution or policy and procedure to notify property owners near parcels of land with pending or approved application to be transferred from fee to trust status. My overarching concern is for the city and Oneida Nation in goodwill to notify affected property owners of the new governing jurisdiction, code enforcement, and zoning authority of the parcel recently transferred or applied to be transferred, and to provide an official forum for public input and comment. I have spoken with Alder Burnett, and he would like us to hold this item a little longer. So I'm making a motion to hold.
Second.
Second by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that is held.
Okay.
Item number 6, discussion with possible action on request by Alder Dorf, which reads, I believe that steps must be taken to ensure that the infrastructure projects, including but not limited to those that the wheel tax will fund, must be chosen very carefully and be placed into a capital improvement plan. I'm requesting that PMP develop policy with the help of DPW, legal, and other appropriate staff. This policy must be developed so that the special interests and requests of individual alders do not subvert the process of choosing the projects that have been carefully researched by city staff as being appropriate for placement in a 5-year plan. Parameters for choosing streets to be repaired, reconstructed, or resurfaced, as well as other infrastructure improvements, should be clearly identified within this policy. This was previously held from the March 25th Protection of Policy Committee meeting. Alder Dorf.
Thank you. So I'm a firm believer, as many of you know, that our main job as alders is governance and not necessarily management. We have city staff to do the management of the city work, and we should be overseeing the governance. So that is why I truly believe in policy. If you get something in writing that is approved by the entire council, you have a process in place, then that's what's followed. And it's difficult to change that process without council being involved in changing it. My concern came about when I attended and observed or watched the videos of the improvement services meetings and saw that streets were being added, and even over, not just this year, but even over the course of years, the plan would come forward by Director Grenier, be well planned out, offered to the committee, and many times the committee would change it, and council would change it. So my concern is that we need to have a way to have streets chosen that cannot just be changed. And because I think it might lead to, one alder talking to another alder, hey, I need a street in my district, I'll support a street in your district. I don't want that even to be a chance of that happening. So I talked to Director Grenier, who I'm happy is here, and I would definitely want him to have a lot of input on this policy. I think legal has to have input on it. I don't think it's something that's created just like that, but that it gives us a structure on how these streets or other projects are chosen and how they're included in the plan. Can I ask Director Grenier if he has any input on that, or would you like to do that, Mr. Chair?
No, certainly anybody. Go ahead. Director.
Well, actually, this is one time that I'm actually going to somewhat disagree with Alder Dorf on this. I don't think it's going to take a whole lot of time for us to pull it together because...
that's all he's disagreeing with.
Well, the reason for that is a lot of this is already internal policy to the department. This is what we've used as our criteria for selecting these projects in the past. All we're looking to do is to get that formalized and adopted by the common council. Again, what we do, what I anticipate this policy to contain is items. It's not going to be it's not going to be a cookbook or a checklist. That places a lot of difficult restriction. We don't have the ability to adapt like we did when we started integrating water utility ratings into our project selection. So what I anticipate is items in this policy to reflect that whenever and wherever possible, we maximize the amount of work that can be done under a common project to include water utility infrastructure improvements, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and pavements. Items such as pavement projects having a pavement PASER rating of 3 or 4, emphasis to the 3, secondary consideration to 4 if it's bracketed by 2 3s. to be eligible for resurfacing. Anything above a 4 is outside of the guise for resurfacing and reconstructs. Pavement projects that have a pavement rating of 3 and these other criteria would then become candidates for reconstructs. You know, items such as that, and it's simply what we're currently doing. The part that we're going to continue to struggle with is, and I've been saying this for the 6 years plus that I've been a director, it's written into the vehicle registration fee memo every time you hear me talk about development of these plans. You will hear me to continue to repeat the same things because they're the same concerns that are extremely real to us. There has to be a funding commitment because we are doing all this planning and the plans get changed because there's no money out there to pay for it, there's what have you, okay? So we're gonna continue to do this, but we're gonna do it with, and we're gonna structure this policy with some presumptions of maintenance of an existing program or a minimal increase, okay? Because right now, that's the reality of it. But again, I think this is something that can come together in relatively short order, probably within the next 2 months, I think is a fair enough time for us to pull this all together. So my preference would be to have this referred to staff so we can draft the policy with cooperation from law department and bring something back to you for consideration.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't think we needed to reinvent the wheel here.
No.
Right, and the only direction I would give is that there seemed to have been a little confusion since we switched over to the wheel tax, which I think now does provide us with that funding vehicle to help make things a little easier. But also, there is some confusion as, are we starting from scratch? Or are we still got streets that back under the old assessment program are at the tail end because they were put there because they said no 3 times. So I would prefer that we start from scratch with the new wheel tax. We got a new formula for going forward for addressing our roads. I think it's going to be a regular funding mechanism we can depend on, and I would like us to, you know, the past is past. Let's start anew, fresh, and let's look at all our streets and get the ones that are worst. Start hitting those. You know, create that list from that beginning. So that would be the only direction I would give to staff. If there, I don't know if staff had any confusion on that or anything, or how they had it planned, but I think I can speak for most alders that we would like to see us start fresh. Alder LaFave?
Last year, I had a request on Farley that goes over. Wherever the apartments,
yes.
okay, and potholes. So I went and I made the request about some potholes. I went back in October and I couldn't believe how the road basically looked like it was gone almost. There were so many potholes, there wasn't much blacktop left, so I just mentioned it to them. And it might have been already on the list. I think sometimes, you know, the aldermen, if they have people, you know, mentioning things, I think it's okay for an alderman to say, you know, if this road looks a little bit, go take a look at it. But not saying, you want this,
Right.
and you want the list, but that, you know, it just, streets that they can actually go and look at to see.
Yes, because they may have assessed the streets and then
Who
some
knows?
heave-ho in the earth and a situation arises that staff hasn't been made
Well, with
aware
that
of.
street
But our
too.
constituents have certainly made us aware, and we just pass that information on.
With that street, there wasn't, years ago, all those apartments. It's about 2 blocks, and then it's new street with all these apartments. So now it's getting all this traffic. So I think it just really, from all the traffic, it just deteriorated so fast.
Right. Alder Vanderleest?
I was going to ask you, Steve, you know, in the past, I think some of the confusion is, as well as that, you know, we pull streets off, like Alderman Weary pulled off Redwood Drive, you know, last year, we took some of the streets that were off. I think that's a poor policy as far as, you know, when we have streets that you already had, you know, planned on doing. I don't think it's good policy for the council to pull the streets off when you know that some of these streets are in pretty bad shape. So I think as you're going forward, we're not going to be pulling these streets off of the agenda as far as they're going to get, in other words, they're going to give out their notices and they're going to get them done. And I think, you know, that was kind of a concern last year where some of the streets were pulled off of the, you know, of actually getting done.
I think you will see less removal from the program in the future because more often than not, and it was almost unanimous, when a street was dropped from consideration at a public hearing, it was due to the assessments, and the assessments have largely, any residentially zoned properties, as the way the vehicle registration fee program works right now, those properties are no longer assessed, and everybody else has had their assessment cut in half. So it's a lot more palatable than the old program was, so I agree that it's less likely to see that type of impact to our program going forward.
Okay, I think that's a big plus as far as, that when you say the street should be done, it's on a, what is it, if it's a 4, they're gonna do reconstruction, is that how it works?
Well, in short, the roads are rated from 10 to 1, 10 being a brand-new street that's never been driven on, 1 being completely impassable. Generally speaking, we target 3s for our asphalt resurfacing program. If there's a 4 that's bounded by or going to be traveled over in order to get to the 3, we may include some 4s in there, but it's generally the 3 streets. And then below the 3, or if it's a 3 with some special consideration, if we've paved it into the gutter already, if the base has failed, if the gutter is in bad shape and cannot carry water, if it's in a very flat area and repaving it is simply going to cause additional problems. Those are the internal decisions that we have always made that we look to put into this document. Those types of streets go forward and become part of the reconstruct project.
That's fine. Thank you.
I think fewer people will be grabbing the pitchforks and the torches and heading
Well,
to
it
the
may not
castle.
stop that, but at least it will provide a little bit more clarity as to why we make the selections we do. Which is what we're hoping to do. We want to get the education up.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Alder Dorf as far as not pitting one alder against another. I think that's important. But it is frustrating. I mean, I've got streets in my district that are terrible, but I'll leave that for now. And I guess, Steve, what I'm asking is, first of all, you have every road in Green Bay rated, correct, or not?
Yes.
Every road. And is that something that we can take a look at?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's something I would like to see. And I think I've heard some rumors too, and squelches if I'm wrong, but, the thing with the wheel tax, that was going to be for assessments, taking care of that. I hear other rumors that maybe that money might be utilized for something else. Possible, like, somebody even said an engineer possibly. Please tell me I'm wrong on that.
There was money set aside through the vehicle registration fee program, and the uses were identified in a memo. That memo, as drafted, was not modified. There were several modifications, amendments that were introduced on the floor, none of which successfully passed. The memo, as drafted, is what was ultimately adopted by the Common Council. So what I am going, and Wednesday night, we will be discussing the capital improvement program for final adoption again. That list was not exhaustive. That list was what programs we would reasonably expect. There is an opportunity to make those modifications. Any modifications, any expenditure out of that vehicle registration fee pot of money has to be for transportation purposes. And one of the things we are going to be talking about on Wednesday night, we did not identify 2 months ago when we brought forward the uses of that money that were identified in the memo, but not necessarily in this year's expenditures, that I will be introducing for expenditures this year, would be in the vehicle, or in the roadway maintenance category, because we did have to cut our budget for pothole patching, crack sealing, and maintenance this year in order to make our 19 budget, and with the winter that we've had. For as many calls as we receive on my road needs to be resurfaced or reconstructed, we've got 10 of those saying that we've got potholes on roads that need to be filled. And to be brutally honest with you folks, here it is April 8th, and I am out of money for the year. So we are going to be looking for some of that wheel tax money to go into maintenance programming for this year as well. But those,
Well,
all
okay,
of those
well, that's
items
fine,
were identified
that's fine, I'm just,
in the memo.
you know, and like I said, this information's been out there, but I just needed to hear that again, so. Also, how many miles of roads do we have, city roads in Green Bay?
456 and change.
456. Do we have a possible goal as far as what we want to do? I know you're waiting for the plan, or we're trying to get that all taken care of, but is there some kind of a feel for what percentage we're looking at this year to resurface?
Offhand,
Offhand?
I don't know.
We're not
I
at
don't have
that
the
point
capital
yet?
program.
Okay. Because I think you're saying, I mean, there's a list of all the roads, you know, the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, 4s, et cetera. You know, to see a list of that, and of that list, you know, I'm hoping that we can see, these are the roads that are gonna be done, and regardless of the district. You know, I think that's why, you know, I was talking, you know, with Alder Dorf was, I think her concern was that one Alder's pitting themselves against another for different projects.
Bless you.
So, I guess I just wanted to know if that's gonna be the general part of the capital improvement program, that you're gonna have specifics, you know, that we can look at as far as what roads are gonna be done.
Those specifics are part of every capital program we bring forward.
Okay, all right.
Right,
Well,
we vote on them.
The roads in the program
They're
are
in-
listed with the
right,
exception
and
of the
I've-
resurfacing program, which is brought forward under.
If I may, but if we go with like a 5-year plan or whatever, we must keep in mind that that's only a guide. It's not set in concrete, because you never know year to year what kind of weather we're gonna have, how that affects gonna road, and how we might have to juggle things a little bit. But it gives us an idea.
All right, I'm good for now.
I'll make a motion for staff.
Motion by Alder Stevens to refer this to DPW to work with whatever staff they need to get this policy before us. Second by Alder Vanderleest. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Director Grenier. I wouldn't put that on you.
That's happened a couple of times.
Yeah.
Several.
Yeah. Don't take offense.
All right. You're at item number 7, consideration of possible action on application for the 2019-2020 liquor license seasons for Class A beer and Class A liquor, cider only, for Van Zeeland Oil Company, Inc. at 601 North Military Avenue, with a licensed premise as convenience store, gas station, one-store building, 40 feet by 60 feet, currently licensed as a Class A beer and a Class A liquor license. Staff.
No objection.
Please concur.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Alder Steuer.
It's not on the
Second by Alder
agenda.
Stevens. All in favor?
What?
It's actually, it's on the computers.
They're talking about something else.
Oh, we have to print, yeah,
It went to print.
yeah.
They're not going to, we're good up here. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes.
Sorry, who seconded? I have Stoyer, who initiated the
Oh,
motion?
Yeah, and Stevens seconded.
Okay, thank you.
We're set?
Yes.
Item number 8, consideration of possible action by Alder Kathy LaFave on a request that states, I request that we look at street assessments for nonprofits, example, Paul's Pantry, Northwester. Their assessment is $17,000. I feel this will take away from the vital services they provide. I do believe they should pay something, maybe half. I believe we have someone here from Paul's Pantry. Do you want to hear from them first, or do you want to hear from staff? Wishes.
Staff.
Staff, okay. Staff, any?
We defer to Director Grenier.
I did have a very brief conversation with Alder LaFave following common council last week. Again, remember when we adopted the vehicle registration fee, or the wheel tax, if it's a residentially zoned property, those properties are not being levied an assessment. We calculate what that assessment otherwise would be, and the money from the vehicle registration fee fund is transferred into the appropriate construction fund. For all other zoning classifications, so that would be commercial, industrial, what have you, the assessments already are cut in half. Okay, so what Alder LaFave is requesting for this Paul's Pantry, it already does represent only 1/2 of what they would have been assessed had this been 2018. I've had several conversations with the executive director up there in regards to this assessment. They have continued to remind me that they are and I'm not going to get into the legal ramifications, the difference between a nonprofit or not-for-profit. But in the way I work, both are interchangeable terms as it relates
Oh, I thought they
to
were.
assessments. Nonprofits or not-for-profits may not be subject to property tax, but assessments are covered under a different section of state statute.
Yeah.
And the short answer, again, I'm going to stay in my lane and not practice law today. The short answer for colloquial conversation, other governmental agencies, utilities, and I think that's it. I think that's
School district?
No, school districts are subject to assessment. Other governmental agencies and utilities are basically the only two property owner types that are not subject to special assessments under state statute. So I can agree and I can appreciate the benefits that nonprofits and not-for-profits bring. These agencies they hold a vital role in our community. That's not the point that we're trying to discuss here. What we're looking at is legally what can and can we not do, and what can we do under an equal protection or equal application type of an atmosphere. And with that, what we've agreed to is residentially zoned properties, because they're paying the wheel tax, should not be. The other than residentially zoned properties, regardless of who they are, they have a mix of small vehicles which will be paying the wheel tax and larger vehicles which will not, and will damage the roads more than what the small vehicles do. So the Common Council elected to cut those zoning classifications in half. Our opinion, that is a very equitable approach. That's why we suggested it in the first place. We don't think anything should change. We should continue to hold the status quo. And as it relates directly to the one instance on the Webster Avenue project, as Aldo Faith has asked for, that assessment already is halved of what it otherwise would have been.
Is there a process to appeal if someone can show, I mean, like before we did assessments, there was a loan, people could get a loan, correct? Can a nonprofit get a loan to pay these? And pay them off?
There was a way to, the way the assessments for payment of special assessments, special assessments are due net 30 after receipt of invoice. So if we finish the project, say on January 1st, they are due at January 31st. Any unpaid balance remaining after 30 days is automatically split into 5 equal annual installments and carries a service charge, an interest rate on it, and that automatically goes to your taxes. Now, there has been a policy for businesses, because businesses typically had larger assessments than residences. There has been a policy that a business under special consideration can make a personal request, an individual request, to the Improvement and Service Committee to go on to a 10-year payment plan. That still exists for other than residentially zoned properties. Matter of fact, I believe the Improvement and Service Committee has, under certain circumstances, has also allowed that for residentially zoned properties, especially if it was an urbanization project that had a large frontage. There were some really extenuating circumstances that was granted for as well. So there still are some options, especially for other than residentially zoned properties, to help spread those out and make them more manageable payments.
Okay. And when was there ever a process to appeal to reduce even further?
There is not, because of how we are legally obligated to calculate the assessments. There still would be an option that if somebody feels an assessment created some sort of an onerous burden on them, there are mechanisms under Green Bay Municipal Code, under ordinance, to defer assessments due to indigence. And I suppose there would always be an option for somebody to petition to have an assessment completely rescinded, which would then place that burden back on the taxpayer or our borrowed funds.
Okay.
You know, Steve, you brought up not-for-profits versus nonprofits, and I don't know if, just for clarification, you brought up a few things as far as the differences and, as far as assessments and that type of thing, and I don't know if our
Well-
legal department has anything to.
No, what I was
differentiate.
saying is for the purpose of assessment, there is no difference.
Right.
There is no difference.
There is no difference.
Okay, just to clarify.
Right.
Okay,
Anything else?
not right now.
Thank you. Steve, I agree with your comments. I don't feel that we should be trying to change what's in place right now. They're only paying half at this time, and I feel that this is a good program that we got going already, and I don't think we should change it.
And what I do want to say is, when I had the conversation with Alder Lefebvre following council last week, I don't know that she necessarily knew that the assessments were already half.
No, I didn't at the time.
So,
Is that across the board for these?
yes, it
Yes.
is. That was all part of that wheel tax discussion that we were,
Alright.
and if you're not residential, we're going to cut it in half. And we spend a lot of time, arguably rightly so, talking about the residents and the residentially zoned property, then I think some of that other stuff
As long as
does
it's
get kind
consistent.
of lost in the wash.
Like consistency is important on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Make a motion to receive and place.
Whoa, I think we need to open the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna open the floor. If any other further discussion for Alder Grenier? Alder Grenier, did it again.
Alder.
Alder Stevens, did you have any questions for Director Grenier?
Here's some water.
Yeah, I know, I don't need any more water, God. Motion open the floor by Alder Stevens.
Second.
Second by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the floor is now open for interested parties. Please come, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Craig Bile, and I am President and Board Chair of Paul's Pantry, located at 1513 Leo Freeway. And I think a lot of it has been misinterpreted what we're trying to do. So we're looking for some direction on what to do. When we got the notice and it said that this was for parcel number 2271, located at 926 Vanderbreck Street, and it's for $17,606. I mean, part of my job and responsibility at the pantry is, wow, that's a lot of money for us. What impact is that going to have on us? And maybe because we passed this out last time, but I would like to pass it out again this time, this is basically our operating statement on a monthly basis. And it shows that it costs us to go out, and we basically go out and collect food from the grocery stores and every place else and try to reuse it. But it costs us 22.3 cents a pound to do that. So this assessment is equal to 78,953 pounds of food, which is what we go through in a week. So that's 1 week's worth of food. And in your assessment policy, it says, you work with indigent people. Well, that's who we service. And we try to give them the food so they can use the money for other things such as utilities, transportation, whatever. And if we lose this, they're going to have to go out and buy it. But I'll just pass this out just to give you for reference the impact. Oh, you get a blank one. Sorry about that.
He knows it by heart.
Yeah. Karnak.
But that's not the real purpose. That's what brought it to our light, that, wow, we got to do something. So then we started researching and saying, well, should we be charged an assessment? And I'll pass out a map of our property, and I guess then I'll go over some.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Some definition, but first, our parcel is the one in blue. So we looked at it. Our street address is Vanderbreck. Vanderbreck does not go through to Webster. On the other side, you got Vanderbreck dead ending too, it doesn't go through to Webster. And according to your assessment policy, you can assess a corner lot. But a corner lot is a lot abutting 2 or more streets at their intersection. There is no intersection. So the world across the street, which dead ends at Webster, has no assessment. Klaus is our back rear-facing lot, which is not assessed. Green Bay Packaging on the corner of Radisson and Webster got 0 assessments because their address is Leo Frigo Way and Webster is their rear, it's not assessed. Radisson could be, but being it's a rear and a side, it's not assessed. What we're saying is, that's the same situation here. We have a rear and a side. Vanderbreck doesn't go through. It's not an intersection. When you do Vanderbreck, yes, we should be assessed. When you do Leo Frigo Way, we're on Leo Frigo Way also. Yes, we should be assessed. But we think that it was an oversight, whoever did the assessments, that doesn't intersect it. It almost looks like it on the map, but it doesn't. There's a sidewalk there, no, you can't drive through. Where do we go to have someone look at this?
Can I ask a quick question?
Right here.
Yeah, but I'm also wondering quick, before, I mean, if what we are doing now is, we're not really making policy here, you're filing an appeal, shouldn't that go to INS?
Ultimately, it's going to go to finance, but
Finance.
just to address a couple of the issues that Mr. Bile talked about, the address doesn't matter. The physical location of the property does,
Yep.
and where you abut streets. The property that's being assessed is physically on the corner of Klaus and Webster and has frontage on Webster. The Klaus side is not being assessed because Klaus is not being improved, Webster is. Packaging, Green Bay Packaging is north of the project limits. The project limits stop south of Radisson Street, which is why packaging is not being assessed.
Okay. I disagree, because this lot right here is Green Bay Packaging and it's north of Radisson. That parcel right there. It's an auxiliary lot that they own, and there's no assessments on it.
And that would be because of a double frontage situation.
And that's what we're saying we have, because it says in Green Bay ordinance, section 13.302, under general definition, a front line, a lot line is your street frontage or your address, which is Vanderbreck, which it states right here on the memo you sent us.
If you've got a question regarding the packaging property, by all means, send it in. I'll be happy to look at it, and if there's an error on packaging, we'll correct it.
That's not what I'm here for. What I'm saying is, what you've looked at and what you addressed is this says our property address is 926 Vanderbreck.
Again, as Alder Scannell has suggested, this is actually a discussion for the
Well,
finance.
and that's actually what I'm asking for. Who do we see? Because we've been given a runaround.
Right, and
We've also been told by our lawyer that if we do have a problem with this, we have 90 days, and you approved it at your last council meeting. We have 90 days to contest this. So we need to know before the 90 days runs out.
This would go to finance. We don't have the jurisdiction here at this committee. We set policies, and we're not really doing a policy here. You're asking for to correct an error or to get an exception or
Well, is
whatever
there
it
a
is.
finance committee, and when do they meet? And
The next one would be in 2 weeks.
Well, and I believe that until such time that an invoice is given, there's actually no action to be taken by anybody.
Oh, so you haven't even been given an invoice yet, so you have more
Well,
than
if
90
you
days.
look at state
Until the
stat-
invoice comes, you
If you look at state statute 66, which is special assessments, it states we've got 90 days once you approved the final resolution, which you approved at your last council meeting. If we do not act within 90 days, we cannot contest it, according to the state.
Well, then, in 2 weeks, finance would meet again. I would have
Sorry about
Alder LaFave, put into communication to finance for you to do it. I don't know if there's paperwork to appeal, for an appeal or for this, how would this?
Don't know.
Staff, legal, do you know, is there any kind of paperwork that they need to fill out, or can they just?
I mean, it would be a totally separate communication than this
Right.
is. And it would be, you know, him basically presenting his facts to the
Right.
finance committee.
But I don't want him to have paperwork needs to be filled out and it's not filled out. You know, there's nothing, he can just put in the communication, show up and they can discuss it and that's all that needs to
Yeah, I
happen.
mean, I don't.
Yep.
No, it's on this topic. I don't
Yep.
understand why would it go to finance if he thinks there's a mistake? Why doesn't it go
To INS?
to the department to look over it first? If it.
No, finance would be if he was disputing or looking to have the assessment rescinded, which is what we had talked about at council.
So what?
If
okay,
he
so
wants
what are
us
we
to take a
talking
look
about?
at, if he wants us to take a look at the assessment rolls and how they were developed, we're not even gonna wait for it to go to committee, we're gonna start that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So now we're back to talking, not about what we were talking about, we're back talking about the assessment,
Yep.
Right.
right?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
So, you can give everything to Director Grenier, the staff can start looking at it. If it's necessary to take this as an appeal to finance, you can put in that communication, otherwise maybe it can just be worked out with staff. If
Because it's too late for tomorrow's meeting,
Yeah, you can.
the 24 hours.
it doesn't need to be a meeting, it doesn't need to be, it doesn't have, staff,
No, to go to finance. It's too late to put.
Right, it'd be 2
communication
weeks.
for tomorrow's workshop.
2 weeks from
it'd be 2
tomorrow.
weeks.
2 weeks.
So that gives staff time.
2 weeks from tomorrow.
So that gives staff time to see if there's any errors or anything that can be done at a staff level to resolve this. And if there can't be, then that gives you time to put in a communication for finance, and you can then take that case to finance, and good luck. There's nothing we can do
I
here.
also made a suggestion that he would, with the attorneys, city attorneys, because I think it's a legal thing also.
Only problem
Well, I'm
is that
sure-
we don't represent
Not to
him
talk
individually, so he
No,
would have to.
no, I meant probably with their lawyer and your lawyer to get together. I think it's a legal issue too.
And Steve and I can talk about that more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully it can get worked out at staff level, then all the headaches gone. If not,
I hope so too, and if we could have a meeting with you, so you can sort of understand where we're coming from, we'd appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, and just, we tried to do it the cheap way too, we changed the address.
You must
but-
play cards.
But, but
Yep.
we just crossed out, put in the new address.
okay, then,
I
I
appreciate it.
Yep, and I'm sorry that that's not something we can resolve here tonight, so,
Oh,
but,
just one other thing.
Mhm.
You're talking about residentially zoned property, getting credit for their wheel tax. And you're saying that nonprofits should pay their fair share, and I agree. But do you know the vast majority of nonprofits are in residentially zoned property? So they're
Then
not
maybe-
paying anything?
yeah, so that.
So it should be equal.
Because I found out the church on Webster is paying nothing. And I just went through and started checking. And almost every church in Green Bay is a residential area,
Yeah,
you know.
location. You know, I mean, the ordinance, I don't know, perhaps that's something we can talk to staff about with.
So that means you're getting apartment buildings?
Apartment buildings would be considered residential.
I know, but I think it should be single-family residential. But that's just.
Craig?
Yeah.
Craig, I have one question.
Yep.
So you did some research, obviously, so did you go to our assessor's office, or how did you get that information?
What
You
information?
know, you said some were no, some were yes, I mean, as far
Oh,
as.
you go online, you can find
You
that.
just did that, okay, I just wanted to know
Yep.
how you did that.
It's all online.
Yep.
All right,
Transparency.
okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
yep. Motion to close the floor? Motion to close the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion?
Motion, place on file.
Motion received and placed on file by Alder Vanderleest, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes. We ready to move on for informational?
Yes.
Staff?
We had no liquor violations
Just a warm, fuzzy place.
Yeah. Thank you. Motion, I'll take a motion to receive and place on file.
Motion.
Motion by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Gentlemen, who wants to adjourn us?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Alder Stoyer.
Second.
Second by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good work, everyone. Thank you. I gotta make another. Jesus.
Well, that's the way it is, you know? All right.
Oh, yeah, that, yeah. Your